Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here on Friday, July 4th, the day after the Toronto Blue Jays completed a four-game sweep of the New York Yankees to take first place in the AL East. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter. And Jori, I mean, how are we feeling? Like, honestly, it was unexpected that they were going to complete a sweep of the Yankees. I think you go into that series, you kind of think, oh, if they sweep them, they'll be in first place. But, come on. Was that really going to happen?
I have so many thoughts on this series, and I don't even know how to synthesize them. I want to get into the heroics. I want to get into, we were messaging before the series and we'd planned to record before, and I don't even know what we would have even said before. And surely we weren't going to predict this. And, I'm thinking of at work people saying that, could you imagine if the Blue Jays swept? And it was, oh, what a ridiculous concept. And the way that the series played out and the incredible series by Springer. I mean, I'm sure you can see my mind's going a million different places.
Yeah.
Don't even know where to start, but just the the most and how the Jays are having this success probably for the first time in the podcast's history. We started what during the 23 season. We basically spent the second half of the season that year
Yeah.
basically being like, why can't this team hit?
And then
I
we
mean,
spent the
dude, this is
next year and a
incredible.
half saying, why can't this team hit?
I just I have a lot of thoughts and we'll have to get to them kind of one by one because as you can see, I am jazzed for this episode. I am jacked up for this
Yes.
episode.
The vibes are at a place that they've never been. I guess kind of before we dive into like the exact specifics of the series, I mean, historically, like putting it in context is really important, right? Like this is the first time that the Blue Jays have been in first in the AL East this late into a season since 2016. This was the first time in 28 four-game series in Toronto that they have swept the Yankees, mopped, if you will. They mopped them, get a bucket and a mop for that because that was insane. But just like the way that they did it, I mean, it's a historic series. No Bo, no Santander, no Varsho. Um, like Vladdy wasn't, he
Vladdy
he
did
had like a big moment in the Monday game. But like I mean, it was realistically, it was George Springer, it was Addison Barger, it was Davis Schneider, it was Andres Jimenez, Nathan Lucas. Like it was just, I think the way this team has played since about the Mariners sweep has been so impressive to me. Obviously, they've kind of had, a couple ups and downs since then, but like they've been one of the best teams in baseball. And I think, you want to talk about the Michael K stuff, right? Like he comes out and says that their run differential says that they're not a first place team. Well, you look at their run differential since, the beginning of May, maybe a little bit after that, and like they've been one of the best teams in baseball, right? Like this is the series that they needed to kind of shut people up. When you talk to people, there's kind of like, well, they got to prove it to me that this is real. It's real now. After this series, like it is real. This is going to be a team that is in contention for the division, that is pushing for a playoff spot, that is, realistically built to win now. And in a weak American League, like this is a team that could go to the World Series.
this is the best way I think I can contextualize this. So obviously you think back to those 2015 and 2016 teams and the way that baseball fever swept the nation. And I think of going to games. Honestly, I think of games, during that kind of August of 2015. And I remember sitting in the dome and I remember it feeling very cramped. It being like, I've never been to a Blue Jays game where it's felt so cramped. And I remember signups for youth baseball the following season in 2016 went off the charts. And I think of the way that everybody at my school was dialed in for, I want to say it would have been game maybe two or three of the first Ranger series. It was happening during the school day. Like baseball fever swept Toronto, swept Canada. And yesterday, as I'm taking the subway down to catch the game, my second game gone to this year, but first basically since opening day. So it had been a while, I watched the team, but certainly not in the heart of it. Going down, wearing my new white Roy Halladay jersey, and the guy turns to me and goes, "Are you going to the game today?" And I go, yeah, do you see what's happening in the series? He goes, well, I've kind of seen some highlights, but it seems like they're doing really well right now. And for just a Joe Schmo on the subway, guy's
Yeah.
telling me that he gave away all his jerseys from back in those 2015 years to an ex or something like that, which poor financial decision aside, um, like, when's the last time you've just been approached like that? Hey, how about those Blue Jays? It's it's early, but the bubbling of a city ready to kind of fall in love with the Blue Jays, it feels kind of like that right now. I mean, you look at even like, the Jays are going into a series against the Angels coming up here, and weekend series against the so-so Halos team, that's gonna be a packed house for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up the Dome because like it was one of the best crowds that they have gotten in a long time. I feel, it's been, obviously you think about like the
But it's also that
playoffs against the Mariners, right?
they
But like,
gave them something like the electricity that,
yeah,
Dan Shulman describes in the broadcast, and of course
they
the
gave
Canada
away the
Day
Andres
game.
Jimenez jerseys.
It was a really incredible series from basically A through Z,
Yeah.
and or Z rather. And the way that it kind of all went down, and we're gonna go through kind of game by game, just the highlights of it all. It's so refreshing, it's so exciting for the Blue Jays to be on July 4th on Independence Day and making it about Canada.
Kind of funny. I mean, this is an aside, but thinking back to like those 2015-16 teams, I know I've told this story on the podcast before, but it was, probably a couple years ago at this point, so I'm gonna tell it again. But so it would have been 2015 because I was in high school, and so had like they played the games during the days, right? During the playoffs or whatever. And I remember being in English class and we were doing a group project in the computer lab or whatever, and we're sitting there watching the Jays game, and our English teacher was a little bit of a stickler. Well, we'll put it that way. And so whatever. So like we're watching the game and she like kind of starts to walk around. So we like flip it back up to our project, right? So that the game isn't on the computer screen. And she walks up behind us and she goes, "How are we doing?" And me sitting there, I'm like, "Oh, she's obviously asking about the Jays, right?" So I like flip open the Jays game and I'm like, "Oh yeah, they're doing all right." And then she goes, "I meant on your project." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're doing pretty good on that. I don't not watching this game at all, but yeah, just straight up like outed the entire group by pulling it back up because I thought she was locked in on the Jays, but she was definitely not. So just kind of funny remembering the time that there was in baseball at that
But
point,
still, it speaks to just the way that it captivated everything, right?
except for
And
my English teacher.
except for your English teacher.
Um,
Goodness.
Okay, let's get into game one. So we'll go back to the Monday. The Max Scherzer start. I mean, we can start with the positives because obviously, the removal a little scary, the way that he, called him out and then kind of pulled himself from the game after what was it, 71 pitches. But the first like 3 innings, like that was some vintage Max Scherzer stuff.
Oh yeah. So I was working that game, so obviously watching the whole thing, and just, Scherzer steps aside, and obviously there's a lot of fear, but to that point, cruising. I believe he finished with 7 strikeouts. Like,
Yeah,
this was this was spring training Scherzer here. I mean, he's
yeah,
battled through his first two starts. This one was mowing him down. I think he could have honestly probably pitched, because 70 pitches through five. He could have gone into the sixth, and potentially, if he had, continued to have success, potentially even into the seventh, right? Like, this
yeah.
was a really good Max Scherzer start. Now, we don't know exactly what the situation is. Word is, I guess, that he's doing fine. I
Yeah,
mean,
they
I
said that
posted
he's
something.
all set to go on Saturday. So
I mean, seems like good news. I mean, I posted something on Twitter and was promptly rebuffed by multiple people being like, "You're out to lunch," but
welcome to Twitter.
but it's still, to me, is concerning that he had that issue, I guess. But I mean, the way they were able to obviously work around it, I think, speaks as well to the way that the bullpen's had success, and generally, it's just a nice, it's a good sight to see. Given obviously the struggles that the Jays have had to fill all five spots, and obviously Scherzer struggles with his own health.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the it was so crazy. Like, I mean, just the 10 pitch judge at bat, like that was, that was elite television. Like two first ballot Hall of Famers going at it. Like Scherzer, man, like he was spotting up, like his stuff looked great. Obviously, yeah, I think he's gonna have to deal with this, right? And I think we've kind of talked about this where he's probably not gonna be like a 6, 7, 8 inning guy at this point with the thumb injury and the age and just kind of everything. I think to see him pull himself is sure concerning, but also like he knows his body, right? So, and I think if you're gonna get 5 innings of 2 run ball with 7 strikeouts from him, like hell yeah, you'll take that at this point because he is filling this like 4 or 5 starter role, and that's really good for the team. So you know what, I think you'll sign up for that every day. 5 innings, 2 run ball. Couldn't
It's,
be happier
it,
with that.
it's exactly kind of what you need, right? It's obviously you want some length, but you right now you're going to work with Lauer, you're going to work with Scherzer, you're going to work with what
Yeah,
they give you, and you're going to obviously work with you've got Bassett, Gosman, Barrios as kind of your core guys, and then you look at the deadline, which is coming up in 3 4 weeks or so. I mean, end of the month. And BNS obviously releases his laundry list of potential
68
options.
players, hell yeah.
68 players, missing notably Austin Hayes, which would have made it a very nice list. But it's work with what you got, and once you get to say the 20 somethingth, you're three or so, maybe four rotations through, and ideally, that's when you're able to maybe work with what you've got, the additional information, and go out and add a piece or two as well, right? So I think for the Jays, having him and Lauer to a certain extent as well, just continue to be just effective options, I think is really the most you can ask. And that start there by Scherzer was
Yeah.
basically exactly what you need from him. You'd obviously like some more length in theory, but anything in the 5 inning range is really gravy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this was a pretty good game. I mean, like obviously a 5-4 win. Can't complain about that. I think this was the game where Vlad had his big moment, right? Like they had the 4-run six that kind of lifted them to the win. Vlad has the big 2 RBI single to give them the lead. And then interesting, this kind of goes into like some of the other moves that they made in the series, but of course, um top of the eighth, you kind of got the top of the order there, the Bellinger Judge Jazz group coming up, and they bring in Fluharty, who of course has since been optioned to the minors so that Jimmy Garcia could return. And Fluharty gives up a homer to Bellinger, who's been really good against lefties, and then they intentionally walk Judge. And then Jazz bunts, and then Chad Green comes in before they kind
Chad
of go
Green,
to,
he had an
yeah, I
interesting
mean,
series. I
hey,
mean, he got the job done.
he did, and I think we can get into him a little bit more when we get to game four of the series. But I'm interested, like, what are your kind of thoughts on the way that they were able to get it done with the bullpen? Obviously they did have to tax them in the series quite a bit, which is why Lazaro Estrada was selected this morning. We don't quite know what the resulting move is, but I mean, to see Fluharty kind of the struggles continue there. Um, yeah, it's disappointing, but I mean, what did you kind of think of the way that they were able to grind that one out?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. They were able to grind it out. It's the resilience is the word I guess I would use,
Yeah,
right? Like, it's really, by committee in every respect of the sense of the word. It's, one guy's got it today, one guy doesn't have it this day, just get there, just get through that, get through it, make it work.
yeah,
And like, I mentioned him right there, Chad Green obviously had a big series, and Hoffman's been really nice, and he was, obviously struggling so much earlier in the year, and now, I mean, through June and into the beginning of July, he's had a lot of like it's just getting contributions just from who you need and when
Yeah.
you need them, right? And it's just kind of made things a lot smoother.
Yeah, one thing too from this game, Ernie Clement gets the call at the leadoff. I know I think they used three different leadoff hitters in the series,
They
so
they bounced
like
around quite a
to
bit
kind
there.
of replace
And
Bo Bichette
Nathan
there, and
Lucas, and we'll get
yeah,
into him too. He had a nice little series too,
yeah,
especially
Ernie
obviously game four. I'm getting ahead of myself. Obviously, I
Ernie,
was there,
yeah, no,
so
no,
it
I mean,
was
yeah, yeah,
that
like
much exciting. But
yeah, Lucas was great. Ernie Clement went 2 for 5 in that game, and then we can move into the Canada Day game because I think like out of the like electric environments and like the like holy shit wins, like that was the Canada Day one was it.
that I think, like, you want to talk legacy Homer, you think of, like, obviously it's not going to be the Joey Bat flip. Obviously, it's not going to be the Encarnacion Homer. But every season, when you look back at the end of the season, there's a couple of moments, there's a couple homers that stick out in your memory. And is there going to be a bigger home run than Springer's bomb? Like, he had a two-homer game, the grand slam. Is there going to be a bigger moment this regular season? I mean, obviously playoffs are not a given, but they're looking pretty good right now.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a bigger moment than that Springer grand slam?
I mean, it's tough to think of one because you go into that inning and it's kind of funny the way that it played out because obviously they enter the inning and it's tied at 4, right? And then you kind of get some guys on and then Barger check swings, but he was beat by the fastball and it would have been the third out of the inning, but he hit the catcher's glove, so inning extended. And then Ernie Clement comes up, base hit. Then
Makes up
George
for an error
Springer.
too, which was huge.
Yes, George Springer comes up, next hitter, grand slam. Like it's, I think a little bit of like everything came up Blue Jays in the series because you do have
Team of Destiny type stuff.
yeah, and it's like just the emotion. You know what? Like I know that like some people, the Yankees fans, were upset about like the emotion that the Jays were showing, but like why not? Like it's a 162 game grind, and like you're doing this to put yourself in the division to come back and put yourself in a spot that you've never been before, and like to me like the emotion that the Blue Jays showed in this series like showed that it mattered to them, right? And it's really cool, I think, when baseball players do kind of let that sink through, and it's something that the Yankees quite frankly didn't show in the series even when they had big moments, right?
There was a lot of yipping and chirping on various social media, this is the Blue Jays World Series, but this was an enormous series.
Yeah,
This was a huge magnitude race for the division type series.
yeah,
Yeah, this was an enormous
in front of
series.
like
Like,
a
no
packed
kidding.
house, in
No
front of a
kidding.
packed house, yeah.
This is I mean, it's no accident this was the biggest series of the year.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I do want to, obviously Springer 7 RBIs, 2 homers, insane. But the Andres Gimenez homer off of Max Fried
That
in
was
in the
that
fourth inning
was
there, 3-run home run, like stunning, like maybe the most shocking home run of the season.
well, I mean, to dead center too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm watching it and I'm like, no, no
Yeah.
chance, no way. And it goes, and it's like, whoa, no way that just happened.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, you go through that game like the Jays, Gossman was pretty solid. He gives you 5 innings, but not his best stuff.
Just battled.
And
And I
yeah,
think all
like
the starters really just battling is like
yeah,
best way I think you could put it, right? No one necessarily had their A stuff, but every guy battled.
yeah, yeah. It was like such an impressive win. I think that one is kind of like the wake up win, right? Like it's kind of like, oh my God, like this is happening. And because they won in the red jerseys too. It's one that they haven't been able to do a whole bunch. So game three, what a roller coaster this one was. 7-0 lead in the first inning. You get homers from Addison Barger and Davis Schneider off Will Warren. John Schneider gives Davis Schneider the start against Will Warren because of his experience in the minors against him. Obviously, pays off pretty well for him because David Schneider ends up hitting 2 home runs in the game, including a big one late in the game where he gives them a little bit of extra insurance. But yeah, obviously the start was electric, and then the Yankees find their way back into it. Eventually tie it at 9-9. And what was your emotions going through that game?
I mean, the biggest one was the Judge homer. I mean, obviously, the first inning, and it's like, oh my God, they're gonna do this. They're gonna tie the Yankees.
Yeah.
And then, we're in the work group chat in Teams, and it gets dropped in there that, after the Jays give up a run or two, the Jays' largest blown lead ever. It's an 8-run lead. So they're right on track to, and everyone kind of scoffs and everyone's like, yeah, okay, as if. And what is it? The top of the eighth rolls around and there's a runner on, and they're pitching a Judge, and Jimmy gets 2 strikes on him, and you're like, come on, just get out of this. And I'm in the control room, and that pitch comes in, and Judge turns it around, and my reaction is no bleeping way.
Yeah.
Because of course, right? Also, friend of the podcast, Thomas Nestigo, with the hysterical, not a high leverage home run technically
Yeah.
by Fangraphs, which had me obviously rolling. But the way that they came back in the bottom of the eighth, right? I mean, they strung together a couple of hits. They got a couple of bounces here and there. Devin Williams continues to be, well, not Devin Williams, I think is the best way to put it, even though he's certainly not struggled to the degree that he was early in the year. But uh, just there's so much, it's such a garbage word with baseball, but the grittiness of this team, it's a meaningless word with
I-
baseball and a
but
lot of the
like
time.
it's crazy how this team embodies it though.
It's I think the best way that you can describe a gritty team is they're hard to strike out. That's the Blue Jays. A lot of
Yeah.
bat to ball skills,
Yeah.
Blue Jays. Maybe not the most power, Blue Jays. Like
And they just don't die. They just don't
that's
die.
just that's
Yeah.
just it, right? Like have they gotten lucky at times? Yes. I mean, the 1-run record is probably inflated maybe a little bit. The runners in scoring position, they're probably hitting maybe a little bit over their head there. Is there some regression coming? Hmm. But what if there isn't? Like, you know, in my lifetime, the Jays have been, the sluggers. They've never been playing terrorist ball.
Yeah.
And right now, the Jays are playing 1-run win, 2-run win terrorist ball. And it's been fun to watch. It's
Yeah.
like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's I think just like you mentioned like that eighth inning where they go ahead and they take the lead. Um, Springer walk, stolen base, Vlad intentionally walk. Um, Kirk like the Kirk ball. Were you watching this one on TV?
This is the 11-9 one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The camera operator on this Kirk fly ball to center field, and they're like, and you're like, no way, he hit it out. But it was like just a pretty
Just a
normal
lazy
fly ball
fly.
to
Oh
center.
yeah.
The
Oh yeah.
camera operator had the center of the camera was like 8 rows deep, and you're like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
But anyway, so then Springer and Vlad tag up, and then you get the wild pitch. Ben Rice probably not a catcher.
Well, that's the other thing, right? I mean, Caleb Joseph was just ripping into him in the post game. And like Ben Rice should not be catching games for the Yankees.
So
I
it's
get why. They got to keep him in the lineup, but
yeah, yeah.
it's like the Yankees as a team, very anti-Blue Jays, defensively, and before we hit the record button, we talked about it. Like Volpe looked very pedestrian.
Yeah.
Jazz
Not a
Chisholm,
third baseman.
not really. Uh, I mean, in the outfield, they had their moments, but certainly nothing really that much. And then, of course, Ben Rice with the pass ball. Like the same way that the Yankees, you know, fell apart in the World Series. And this is not to necessarily compare the series to the
To the
2024 World
World
Series,
Series.
to the World Series. But the Yankees got burned the same way they got
Yeah.
burned then. It's that they struggled with their defense and they struggled with the, between the margins.
Yeah.
And, Judge shows up and hits the big bombs and saves their bacon. But if you just work around Judge, clearly they're beatable to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's funny, like the AL East. Obviously the Red Sox have kind of fallen off a little bit, but you have like the Yankees and the Red Sox who play non-fundamental baseball. Like it's just the Red Sox, man. Like that's like just watching them play, like it's embarrassing at times. And I think you can kind of say the same thing about the Yankees, where it's like,
See, the thing with the Red Sox, young team, like they'll grow into it. The Yankees, I think, are just selling out for dongs and are throwing the rest by the wayside.
yeah. I mean, I did kind of like the offseason that the Yankees had. Like I thought, obviously, well, you lose Juan Soto. Don't love that for anybody in the offseason. But I thought they did like a pretty good job of like getting a little bit more athletic and a little bit more versatile. And then, they just kind of haven't been able to like play that way.
Well, the Volpe stuff is so fascinating because he was a top
Yeah.
five
Yeah.
defender, maybe. And you look at it this year, he's been just egregious.
Yeah.
And the hitting obviously has very marginally
I
moved
think
along.
you
Like he's
I think he's probably a little bit like one of those like, the cave is coming in on him a little bit, like the New York pressure box. I saw somebody compare him to Mitch Marner, hometown kid who
that's not
gets eaten up by the hometown crowd.
that's not a
Mitch
bad.
Marner is like an 100-point scorer,
The
and
difference
Anthony
is
Volpe is like a 22-year-old shortstop who's never really been that excellent.
there's some differences, but I mean the pedigree, right? Like I don't
Yeah,
know, it's
yeah.
there's definitely I could totally see a universe this guy ends up with the I don't know the Cincinnati Reds in 2029 and puts together a very solid, effective season type of vibe.
He like the ceiling there is like it's pretty high, honestly. Like a guy who probably is like a 2020 shortstop who plays really good defense, but I just, there's
He did
there's
not look that way this
no,
series. I think that's the
no.
takeaway.
Yes.
He looked extremely bad.
That's a lot of Yankees
And they
analysis from
were
us.
and they were absolutely like eviscerating him too on the broadcast. It was kind of incredible. Shulman on the I think it would have been the Canada Day game was kind of going and was like, yeah, they're really taking it to him. They're really hard on this kid. It's hard to follow up, Derek Jeter as the heir apparent and stuff. Meanwhile, the Yankees broadcast is like, yeah, get this guy off the team. We're done
Yeah.
with him. It was incredible.
That's a lot of Yankees analysis from us for our Blue Jays podcast. But I did want to, I think we should talk about it, the John Schneider intentionally walk stuff here with Judge in this game. Um, what did you think of that decision? Obviously,
Well,
Jimmy first game back off the IL. Um, top of the eighth gets you out, walks Ben Rice, which is actually the real issue that inning was that they walked Ben Rice before Judge, and it's kind of like, well, Judge is the tying run at the plate, and this was, of course, the justification after, right? Like you don't want to put Judge on and then have
go
Bellinger
ahead
hit
and
and hit the go ahead home run, right? In the end, obviously, it doesn't end up mattering, but I mean, twice in the series, he did it during Monday's game and during Thursday's game, where Judge was the tying run and got intentionally walked.
like that's what you got to be doing with him clearly. Like he's not Barry Bonds, but you got to just give him the Bonds treatment because there's no protection for him anymore. There's no Juan Soto to follow up and do damage the following, like who hit behind him most of this series? I think it was,
Bellinger.
yeah, like he's got a 780-ish OPS, maybe. Like he's a maybe marginally above average hitter. They brought in Stanton to pinch hit
That was
during the
such a
game
weird decision for
yesterday.
me because the game was tied. Or sorry, it wasn't tied. They were down by one, tying run at third, two outs. And you bring in Stanton with Goldschmidt and LeMahieu on the bench. I'm like, wouldn't you rather, you know, like a more ball and play oriented player to like try and get that run home?
Well,
But
that was kind of the
I mean, Stanton
just
Stanton put the ball in play. It was like his softest hit ball of his career. It was like 48 off
probably.
the bat or something.
Yeah, like it was Listen, at the end of the day, like it's the Jays did what they needed to do, and it's a clear path to victory against them, right?
Yeah.
Like Judge is going to punish you. Um, I mean, as much as the Yankees didn't have a great series, I mean, I think Judge got on
Yeah, he was on
probably,
base in like what was it, like 9 of
I think it was,
13 at bats or something?
yeah, I was gonna say, I thought
Maybe
it might
even
even
more.
been higher, but I mean, he was on base all the time. But the preference here is Judge on first and maybe a guy on second or whatever, as opposed to 2 runs against, right? Like,
Yeah.
if that's what you got to do, if you've got to work around Aaron Judge, that's what you do it. And the Jays did the right thing, right? Like you got to kind of pick your spots, and it's clear that the way to beat the Yankees is to make sure that Aaron Judge can't beat you. And the Jays executed that really effectively. I don't know necessarily why they went away from that, when it was Jimmy against Judge, and they're fortunate that it didn't cost them. But I mean, nevertheless, it's still like if you know what you need to do, then it's clear that you stick to it.
Yeah, Judge finished the series. He went 6 for 10 with 16 walks.
Sorry, that what?
Yeah.
That can't be right. Sorry, he walked 16 times.
Yeah, he had so sorry, he reached via sorry, not 16. Math is wrong. 14. That's
Wait,
including I'm tossing a hit by pitch into that.
no, but hold on. He 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 walked, but he walked or got
Yeah.
on base 14 times via the free pass or a
Yes.
hit by pitch during the
Yes.
series.
Yes. He walked he so regular walk 8, 5 intentional walks, 1 hit by pitch.
Holy,
And
holy
then he went six
moly.
six for 10 when they didn't walk him.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. I knew I walked him, but I didn't realize it was that much. My lord.
Um yeah, kind of crazy. But I
I
mean,
thought you added about a 10 to that. I
no.
thought I thought you meant it was like, hey,
No.
it's 6 walks.
No, he went 2 walks
Holy
in game one, 3 walks in game. Well, sorry, this is not included in the intentional walks. Included in the intentional walks, it was 4, 4, 2, 3 per game.
good lord. Honestly, that's what you got to do. I'd
So
rather Judge was on first than walking around home plate.
here's what I'll say about the Jimmy one is I'm fine with them pitching to him in that spot. I know he hit the home run. And like obviously the intentional walks did work and whatever. But to me, like I would always be nervous as a manager bringing the go-ahead run to the plate, right? Like
Yeah.
make them hit 2 home runs instead of 1 home run, right? And like, I know it's not Juan Soto behind him, but Cody Bellinger is like a capable major league hitter, a former MVP. Um, I just thought it was interesting that they like deviated from their strategy. I think it was probably depending on who was pitching, right? Like I think,
Well, the other thing too is like, it's different when you're tossing, you know, Jose Barrios 85 pitches in and
yeah,
his stuff is maybe waning a little bit as opposed to a very, very fresh Jimmy Garcia
yeah,
who is literally your fireman for all intents and purposes.
yeah. I'm fine with kind of that decision. I like personally, if I was a manager, I would never intentionally walk somebody to bring up the
It's
go ahead
it's
run.
it's probably a case of good process, poor results as opposed to poor
It's also like
process.
I guess you do have to consider like it is Aaron Judge. It's not just like
There's no right answer.
yeah. So I mean, hey, they won the game. That's all that matters.
This episode of the Bird's Eye View podcast is brought to you by BioSteel. Use code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order at biosteel.ca. Again, that's code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order. For all your high performance hydration needs, visit biosteel.ca. Thank you again to BioSteel for sponsoring today's episode.
Um, we can go into yesterday's game. The clincher, Bassett, not his best stuff, but man, like 113 pitches, like he just grinded.
Well,
It was like a
they
very
needed
typical Chris Bassett performance because they needed him to go like 5 or 6 innings. Because if you look at the guys that they had coming up behind him, it was Fisher, Green, and Justin Brule
it was
and Jeff
not a
Hoffman.
whole
But
lot, and Hoffman at the end, yes, but like they needed depth. That was like a start straight out of 2008.
yeah,
Um, He just threw a million pitches. I would be shocked if any other Blue Jay has thrown that many pitches since probably 2020, honestly. But certainly this year. And I'm sure I could find the stat, but
I
needless to
believe
say.
Blake had it. I'll pull it up if you keep.
But 113 pitches, and just battling, just going at it, and the way he was able to get through it, right? Like being in the crowd, the standing ovation for him gave him 3 runs. Like it was a fine outing, but it was a well-deserved ovation for him because of the way that he battled, right? And he kept the Jays in the mix here. And of course, the offense also did their part, and we'll get into that in a moment, but. Uh, really impressed by Bassett, especially given how much he struggled in his prior outing.
Yeah, so his 113 pitches were, of course, the most by a Blue Jay this season, and the sixth most in Major League Baseball. And over the last 4 seasons, Blue Jay has thrown 113 pitches only 5 times. So
There's your answer right there, right? And I'm sure Bassett is probably among those other guys. It's kind of what he does. He's a throwback in every sense of the word, and the way that he was able to just grind it, like again, just
yeah,
a gritty performance, and it's such a like a non-word, such a meaningless, very feel word
it's a subjective term.
for a podcast that really prides itself on, the numbers and the stats and the this and the that. It's a different one, but it's a good one from Chris Bassett.
I mean, so this game to me, like obviously 2 spring homers, Barger, another laser, 3 for 4. Nathan Lucas, 3 hits out of the leadoff spot. But the one thing that's going to stand out to me from this game is the Nathan Lucas 14 pitch at bat.
That
Because
was
if
absolute unbelievable. Like
there
no
is not
words.
a singular at bat of the year that embodies this Blue Jay season like that.
9 foul balls.
9 foul balls,
Incredible.
14 pitches, and then he hits, it's not even like he ended with a strikeout, right? Like he hits a double down the line. Um, it was a very interesting double. We'll say that. It's like, this far above the strike zone and it bounced foul before it ended up being fair. Um, but like, I mean, come on. Like if you tell me that's not the 2025 Blue Jays in an at bat, then I don't know what is.
It's I don't even know the thing that just comes to mind when you say that. It's all this talk about you know Mark Shapiro, Ross Atkins wanting to turn them into the Cleveland Guardians. And that at bat felt so Cleveland Guardians. And the Blue Jays, it's kind of like their evolution is completed. That was such a Blue Jays at bat. The way that Lucas wouldn't go down. I texted you before the game. Lucas in the leadoff spot, and I was like, "Oh brother, here we go." He had an incredible game. He had
Yeah.
an impeccable game, and was really only not the call it first star, whatever you want to say, post game interview, because of the heroics from the rest of the lineup, because it
Yeah.
was such an incredible lineup, one
Well,
through nine in a lot
it's
of
funny
respects,
because
right? Like
yesterday you look at the
it
end
was well,
results
it
of
was such
yesterday's
a
game. They have 11 hits as a team, three
it
from
was
Lucas, three
it
from
was a
Springer, 3 from
patchwork
Barger.
lineup though. It was so I mean they show the breakdown and
Yeah.
pregame. I'm like, it's Vladdy and Springer and Barger and the band of merry men. I mean, Lucas started in center field. That's 3 center fielders down the depth chart. They were really digging in there.
It's just incredible. I think the way that this team has played, the way that they've come together as a team, like I think, like, as much as you want to say that gritty like isn't quantifiable, like this team kind of embodies it, like I think there's a different guy stepping up every game. There's like this bottom of the order is isn't anything sexy on paper, but they do a job and they play like fundamental baseball. They put up tough at bats. They are, frustrating for other teams to get through, right? Like Nathan Lucas
Well, the
shouldn't be frustrating
frustration,
the New York Yankees, but like,
the frustration around the Yankees. I
yeah.
mean, you go all over Yankees
I
Twitter,
think I saw
anything that
somebody
you
called David
watch.
Schneider the Planet Fitness Man.
Like the immense frustration, I'm sure is it's exactly what the Blue Jays want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. We can do like Chad Green, an inning and a third in this game. Like nothing pretty, but got the job done. Justin Brule, nothing pretty there as well. And then obviously Jeff Hoffman comes in and finishes the deal at the end. Hoffman, I think 3 and 4 days for him now.
I mean, they're
Um,
working him. They're really working
I
him, but he's working.
do you wonder if he was down today? Because Sandlin was warming up to go in for the ninth. I do wonder if Hoffman kind of was, I'm taking the ball to close this thing out.
It's possible. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Obviously, didn't catch that necessarily, but I mean, you saw Hoffman standing in the dugout, or as for the excuse me, the bullpen, kind of as the innings progressing, and you're like, okay, he wants in on this.
Yeah, I think you're fine with him taking the ball in that moment because I think if you say they blow leads in the next 2 games to the Angels, nah, whatever. They did just sweep the Yankees. Overall series though, I mean, it can kind of just look at like, who was the kind of the catalyst. Like, I mean, it
Well, we
was
haven't we haven't talked Barger yet, and I'd like to talk some Barger here.
sure.
We
Yeah.
haven't given Barger some love, and he had another huge game the other day. Obviously, last night. I mean, he hits that absolute laser beam homer, and he has the double in the first inning, and uh, like said it before we hit the record button. He's not beating the Josh Donaldson allegations. I know you said it's too early. I don't know, man. I'm about ready to kind of anoint this guy the either the third baseman or the right fielder of the future. Really, your pick
I
because
mean, he's
this
he's
is incredible.
like he's playing like an all-star. And all the data backs it up, right? Like, I mean, he's hitting the ball at a ridiculous rate. I think you look at I think it was like his extra base hits per 100 at bats is on par with Otani and Judge and Cal Raleigh
Well,
and
there's a
like
lot of
these
comp.
guys,
Even the
right? Like,
swing data is comparable to
yeah,
like Otani. Like this is crazy. I tweeted it out yesterday, and I don't even know if he had his. I mean, I assume he hit his homer, but I mean, his WRC is hovering around buck 40. Like this is like
yeah,
top 10 season by a Blue Jays left-handed hitter territory. 25 years old in his second big league season. There's a
yeah.
lot, a lot, a lot to dream on right now.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny like when you watch him hit because you're kind of like, well, he's gonna smoke the ball like every time he's up there. Like you expect it at this point, which
He
I think is
looks like he just like there's so much violence in his swing.
yeah.
Um and even in a way that a lot of guys on the team don't have, right? Like nobody on the team really, I think, other than save for Vladdy and to a lesser extent Bo, but maybe not even, has the violence and the power in their swing.
Yeah, he spends the entire dollar when he is up there. But yeah, I mean, for the series, right? Like, I mean, he goes 6 for 15, two doubles, two homers, 6 RBI, like just incredible stuff. Davis Schneider, um, amazing series from him too. Like I believe the team leader in OPS since he has returned to the lineup, and that might
Well,
be
he's been a revelation
like
too. And
a
even the swing decision stuff, I mean,
yeah,
Blake Murphy mentioned on the broadcast, it's like Soto-esque. Probably not sustainable, but I mean, at the same time, uh,
his
you
WRC plus is approaching 140 as well on the year.
if you are gonna go out there and be selective, and then do damage on the pitches you can do damage on, that's all you can really ask for from him.
Yeah. Yeah, he was awesome. I think, like obviously he it's a great story, right? Because he's a guy who comes up, has all the success in the world, really struggles last year, struggles out of the gate this year, ends up back in AAA and comes back. And I think for a guy who has grinded as much as he has in his career, right? Like he didn't debut until he was 24. Like he's 26 now, which is still pretty like overall pretty young. But like I mean, this is a guy who spent a lot of time in the minor league. So I think, you think that a guy like that is going to go down to the minors. I don't think that you can ever count him out because he has been through everything you can imagine, right? So I think, really encouraging to have him back. It's going to be an interesting to see how they decide to handle that like right-handed bat off the bench option because if he keeps doing this, I mean, do you need to trade for an Austin Hayes, for a Ramon Laureano, for insert X right-handed hitter at this point?
Yeah, the bulk of the resources are going to go towards pitching and
Yeah.
probably starting pitching. Who that'll necessarily be, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into that in the weeks to come with the draft and then the deadline to come. But like, this is pretty clearly going to be a team in need of pitching because the hitting has been such an incredible success story this year, which is a crazy thought when you compare it to basically the rest of the 2020s for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like it's I think, you kind of look at in this series, obviously, like George Springer. Like George Springer's probably been the Blue Jays MVP to this point of the year. Like it's just amazing the way that he's kind of turned his career around and like
Well,
changed the way
like
that people look
again,
at
like
him, right?
another
Like
thing that
it's
we said, right? Like another thing we said before we hit the record button. This is the only series, or excuse me, the only year I can think of that even remotely comes close to this for Springer. It's so unexpected. You think of like the Joey Votto,
Renaissance in
zombified back from the
2021.
dead. Yeah, the Renaissance is probably the nicer way to put it. But yeah, like this is an incredible turn of events for George Springer, and we gave him lots of love, obviously, when we're talking the Grand Slam, but just you can't give him enough, just enough flowers in
Yeah.
terms of the incredible season he's had.
I mean, would you, do you think he's going to be an all-star?
I would hope so. It seems like it's
I know that the defense
hopefully
has like really hurt his value like by WAR. But I
he's
think
approaching a
he's
900
got he's got
OPS.
a 149 WRC plus in the outfield. Like how many guys in the American League have been better hitters than him
I
in the
can't
outfield?
imagine that list is all that long.
I
Obviously,
did I just
we
pulled it up
had
for qualified outfielders. How many people do you think have a higher, how many outfielders in the AL do you think have a higher WRC plus than
four
Springer?
guys,
No,
six guys. Am I too high? One
one.
dude,
It is Aaron Judge is the only one with a higher WRC plus.
George Springer, All Star. Fly Guerrero Jr., All Star.
Yeah, we
Addison
can.
Barger, All Star. Ernie Clement, All Star. I don't know. This team has some All Star candidates.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of does it for coverage of the series. Like, is there anybody else you kind of want to mention? We talked about Jimenez, Vlad, obviously not his best series. The pitching, we kind of talked about that. Springer, Schneider, Barger, like all great series. Anybody else you want to?
I think just the whole team,
Yeah,
just on the whole, it's just an incredible series. The vibes, man. I just don't think
yeah,
we've ever had a podcast like this where we've been able to just go the Jays, the Blue Jays, and not be exasperated when we're saying that.
yes. Um, So we can move on because yes, you mentioned Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Voted in to be the American League starting first baseman at the All-Star game. Very cool. His fifth one. He's halfway to his dad. Like in very rarefied air in Blue Jays history now with kind of a fifth one. Um, yeah, really cool moment there. I don't think I have much else to say about Vlad. Obviously, you know what? Like he's a very popular player and. Yeah, more popular than Paul Goldschmidt, obviously. Kirk does not get voted in over Cal Raleigh. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
Cal Raleigh is an MVP candidate. Alejandro Kirk has been excellent, and I am fairly certain that he will be voted in as the second American League catcher for the game. So not really all concerned about him not being able to get enough votes to surpass him there. But I think, for as far as like candidates on the Blue Jays right now, like it is, Vlad obviously and Kirk probably gonna get in. Like I think the offense has been good enough. The defense is obviously always excellent. And then you're looking at Springer and Barger and Ernie.
but that's like five dudes. This
You're,
is like
you're
the
like you're obviously
2021 team.
not gonna
You
get
might not
five,
get all
but
of them. You probably won't get all of them, save obviously for a potential injury replacement. You think of maybe a third base, J Ram or something could be hurting. I mean, he's hurting right now since the hit by pitch. I wonder if maybe an opportunity opens up there with you know, obviously get Bregman in there, but then after that, I mean, maybe Ernie gets a spot. Like there's enough machinations here. The Jays are going to send a couple people to the All-Star game.
yes, yeah. The Ernie case has maybe taken a couple steps back, but I think as like a utility guy, like he is third in American League third baseman in F4. So, I think we look at the Springer case and it's kind of built on like his hitting attributes, but Ernie's is kind of more like the well-rounded game, right? Like so I think you look at who he's going to be competing with for, potentially that spot. It's like Addison Barger, who's right there as well. He's seventh in American League third baseman if you want to quantify him as a third baseman. I would imagine Barger has a tough time being considered like an outfielder for the game because, Springer's there. There's the three guys who were voted in, and then there's, kind of the guys who are around there. But I mean, if you're looking at WRC plus for outfielders, Barger is ninth for all American League outfielders with at least 100 plate appearances.
Like there's a couple guys here. I mean, really, we could just rhyme off the stats, but I think the crux of it here is, and I think that the wider message here is that the bats have been just incredible. I really think that's all you can really say at this point.
Yeah, it's been, it's kind of funny because you like look at the projections entering the year and it's kind of like, oh, the pitching is going to be the problem. And you're like, well, I think they're you kind of want to see it before you believe it, right? Because the bats had been so bad and they started out the year not exactly firing on all cylinders, right? So, um, yeah, I think you'll do you want to make a prediction how many Blue Jays are at the All-Star game in Atlanta?
Four. I'm saying four for
Four?
sure. I
Vlad,
think
Kirk,
Barger
Barger,
and
and
Springer.
Springer.
I think they'll be four.
All right.
There might be an injury replacement involved there. I
All
mean, that
right.
would probably be something that makes sense, but I think at least three, and I do think that there'll be a fourth one there, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
If
And then the
Barger gets it,
draft will be
like
coming
that's
up as well.
if Barger gets the All-Star nod, like that's
The
rocket ship
stock
kind of
is
stuff.
going.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, coming up now, you get through this stretch where, the really impressive, obviously, you win the series against Guardians, you win the series against Red Sox, you sweep the Yankees after losing your series to the White Sox. So they're like 8-2 in their last 10. And then now you get the Angels, White Sox, and A's. How are you feeling about this stretch? Like what do you kind of want to see from them during this stretch?
I'm licking my chops right now, man. I got my eyes set on those Detroit Tigers, man. And I know that's I know that's a bit of a ways away. We might have to pump the brakes, but just keep pace. Stay ahead of the Yankees, stay ahead of the Rays, and let the chips fall where they may. But this is a huge opportunity here to create some separation ahead of the All-Star break. And you head into the All-Star break first in the division, you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean they're 11 games above 500 right now, which is, incredible, really. And you get this 9 game stretch here. Like if they go 6-3, are you happy with that?
I think you work with that. Obviously, that would probably entail be a loss or two you want back, but
Yeah. I
at
mean
the
they
same
got they got
time,
some revenge to enact on the White Sox after losing that series.
let's see what they got here. Let's
The
see what they
A's though,
got.
the A's they got some revenge to enact on the Blue Jays after that sweep earlier in the year.
Uh, Must
Yeah.
watch baseball is all I can say,
It's
which is
it's
real
gonna be
nice.
like honestly, if they can do 7-2, like that would be huge, I think,
That would
for
be
kind of your
enormous.
your playoff odds, right? Because, it's the teams around you aren't playing, the easiest schedules at this point. The Yankees have got the Mets, you look at the Astros who are ahead of the Blue Jays in the playoff standings, if you will. Like they've got the Dodgers here. Like there's a real opportunity here for the Blue Jays to kind of like put them in a position to be like a first round bye team.
Like you said, rocket ship.
Rocket ship indeed. You have any other thoughts about this upcoming Blue Jay stretch or about the series before we go?
We need another, we have the stretch to save the season. We have the stretch to save the season. What are we calling this one?
Man, it's the stretch that renewed hope. I think it's the stretch that proved they're here, the stretch that they stamped their contender letter. They're officially there. They're here, and it's I think we're in for an exciting summer of baseball.
I'm ready for it. I'm amped.
All right. Well, we are going to run. That is going to do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. You can find us there at the Bird's Eye View podcast. If you're listening along on the podcast provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at Worden_Zach. Jory is at J Negin-Shecter, and the pod is at BEV_pod. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the games this week.